Dear committee, dear audience, let me present my PhD work. I'm Tímea Lőrincz-Molnár, a pediatrician resident doctor interested in pediatric neurology. My aim is to help children and their families dealing with neurological condition while improving the diagnosis of paroxysmal events in childhood. In order to achieve our goal, we are conducting two different scientific methodologies, systematic review and the registry analysis with the aim to characterize and differentiate epileptic seizures and paroxysmal non-epileptic events in childhood using Video-EEG monitoring data. We are using the same clinical question and the same PICO framework during our studies. And let me start with my first project, which can give a new perspective to pediatric neurology. So the most common neurological condition in childhood is epilepsy, affecting approximately 1% of the whole child population. And one study shows that nearly half of patients with paroxysmal non-epileptic events are misdiagnosed. These are events that resemble epileptic seizures, but do not involve abnormal electrical activity in the brain. The misdiagnosis is crucial. In case of overdiagnosis, children and families will face social stigma, and they can have lowered educational expectation. In contrast, in case of underdiagnosis, there is a still untreated underlying condition in case of children, which can be even life-threatening. And sadly, the diagnostic delay can exceed beyond 20 years, potentially having harmful effects on patients' life. How can we diagnose these episodes? The current routine diagnostic method consists of patient history taking, neurological examination, and access of home videos where parents capture the suspected events and EEG monitorization. But due to the lack of differential diagnostic protocols, the misdiagnosis is common. The gold standard is the long-term continuous Video-EEG monitoring, but it requires special equipment and expertise only available in epilepsy centers. And our aim is to identify the main characteristics of paroxysmal non-epileptic events in childhood based on Video-EEG monitoring, which can serve as a guiding framework during the routine diagnostic method and access of the home videos. To achieve our mission, we have to answer the next question. What are the Video-EEG and patient history data differences between the two entities? We are studying children with paroxysmal events. The exposure is epilepsy. The comparator is paroxysmal non-epileptic events. And we are dealing with patient data in Video-EEG characteristics. And we suppose that there are notable semiological differences between the two entities. We did a systematic search. Our search key is composed of three main domains, focusing on the pediatric population, Video-EEG monitoring, and epilepsy or PNA. After the systematic search, we ended up with more than 11,500 articles, and finally we analyzed 27 full-text articles. These articles could have been further subdivided based on the children's age to an infant and toddler subgroup with patients aged between 0 and 3 years, and the pre- and school age subgroup with children between 3 and 12 years. During the literature research, we faced more than 340 semiological event types, and based on the Lüder's classifications, we organized them into 28 main event types, which can be seen in the table. And we have the finished analysis for all semiological event types in both subgroups, and I would like to focus on our main findings. All our studies were retrospective cohort studies, and our outcome is the proportion of patients who had an event. And our first semiology is arrest. As you can see on the video, it's a sudden stop in the patient's motor activity. During the research, we analyzed more than 28 articles. The heterogeneity was high, and you can see that the pool proportion in case of both groups are greater with 1.5 times in epilepsy group, and in our first first group, the p-value is 0.06. So our finding is that arrest occurs twice more frequently among 0-3 years old children with epilepsy, and this finding is not only clinically relevant but also statistically significant. Our next semiology is the tonic event, which is a sudden stiffness in the muscle, which can take up to several seconds. We analyzed in our two subgroups more than 24 articles. The heterogeneity is moderate, and we can see that the pooled proportion of this semiology in the epilepsy group is greater 4 times, and the p-value in our older subgroup is less than 0.01. So we can conclude that tonic events occur 5 times more frequently among 3 and 12 years old children with epilepsy. And our last semiology is the hypermotor event. As you can see on the video, is a vigorous hyperkinetic movement. It's a more rare event. As you can see, in case of the younger subgroup, we didn't have 3 articles to do subgroup analysis, but we could study 16 articles. The heterogeneity is moderate, and you can see that in case of epilepsy, it's 5 times more frequent reappears, and the p-value is 0.01. And our finding is that hypermotor events occur 5 times more frequently among 3 and 12 years old children with epilepsy. Our study is unique. It is the first comparative study in pediatric neurology with age-specific characterizations, but we have to deal with some small amount of articles and patients and different semiology reporting methodologies. And we can conclude that arrest, tonic, and hypermotor events are more specific to epilepsy, and these children have to have further diagnosed and potentially need anti-epileptic therapy too. And with our study, we can provide new diagnostic protocols and therapeutic plans, and we can offer new and uniform classification and semiology reporting system too. Here you can see the status of our manuscript, and we are further working with data of 1 and 21 years old patients which can offer us more data. And to further characterize and differentiate these event types, we are doing a registry analysis. The Bethesda Children's Hospital Video-EEG monitoring unit was established in 2001. Here, children and their families can get a continuous video and electrical monitoring service. In the last years, we had more than 1,500 video-EEG recording with the aim of diagnosis, differential diagnosis, and pre-surgical assessment of the pediatric population. And our aim is to further characterize and differentiate epileptic seizures and paroxysmal non-epileptic events for a better differential diagnosis. Into our registry, we included those patients who had at least one paroxysmal event, and we are not dealing with patients without or with concomitant episodes. And we can analyze more than 36,000 epileptic events and 8,500 paroxysmal non-epileptic events. During our study, we are focusing on the case of each event type, on their duration, frequency, and age of the child too. So, in summary, in order to characterize and differentiate paroxysmal non-epileptic in childhood, we are performing 2 different scientific methodologies, and we are happy to announce that our first article in the topic was accepted, focusing on the importance of long-term video-EEG monitorization in the diagnosis of epilepsy syndromes in childhood. So thank you for your attention. With the words of Rumi, every child is a different kind of flower, and all together make this world a beautiful garden.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. It's a really comprehensive work. I was just wondering how well these events can be or was described in these papers. So they just provide videos for the events, or how is it reported in the literature?
So thank you for your attention. It was a really crucial point in our study. So as I mentioned before, there were different semiology reporting systems. First of all, the authors provided us the characterization protocol. They could use the Lüder's classification system for the definition of an event, or they described the semiology as they referred. From another point of view, there were articles where the authors described the full length of the event with the pre-ictal and post-ictal status and events, but there were articles where these events were collected into a table focusing on the main domain, for example, a tonic event. So there were a wide range of studies, and there were no studies with videos.
And you read many of these papers. What would you recommend for a future author of a paper like this? What would be the best way to report an event like this?
Okay, thank you. I would recommend for the authors to focus on the detailed description of these events, focusing on the events before, during, and even after the episode, focusing on the post-ictal status and the resolution of these events too, because they can guide us in the diagnosis and treatment of these conditions too.
Thank you.
I would have a question, if I may rely. You mentioned that you had a significant or considerable heterogeneity in your results. Did you try to address it by, for example, subgroups by the protocol type or some other way?
Okay, thank you for your question. So it's heterogeneous because there were different methodologies to report these events. And first we wanted to focus on the age specificity of these events because they have different semiologies, as the central nervous system matures provides us different semiological types. And from this point, we have these aspects to treat the heterogeneity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, congratulations for your nice presentation. I was wondering, what is the semiology of the non-epileptic cases?
Thank you. So we can discuss about the non-epileptic semiology too. So we could see from our study, from our results, that those motor episodes where there was included the antagonist and agonist musculature was more specific to non-epileptic events. For example, limb shaking or head deviation to the right and left side. And from adult studies, we know that the eye semiology is also different. For example, in case of non-epileptic events, patients must often close their eyes, whereas during a seizure, they have more predominantly open eye episodes.
Thank you.
One last question. So. Congratulations, first of all, very interesting study. So now, based on your study, I can tell that this patient has epilepsy and this patient has non-epileptic seizures. Now, my question is, treatment-wise, how would you differentiate between treatment for this patient and that anti-epileptic seizures are either like focal, like carbamazepine or pre-GABA, or
Okay.
you know them, or broad-spectrum anti-seizure drugs?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, as a clinician, we have to observe and to focus on children who have such paroxysmal events. And after that, we have to further study their episodes in order to know whether that's an epileptic or the non-epileptic. That's why we are conducting these studies. And with our routine and gold standard diagnosis method, we can study the characteristics of the epileptic seizures, and based on their characteristics, we have different kind of anti-epileptic drugs to treat a focal or a generalized seizure, but we have to further observe the child as her or his status progresses or evolves during these episodes.